relationship with tea?
Grew up drinking it. It was a normal beverage to drink. The funny thing is that in Sri Lanka it's drunk sweet and milky. You'd have to ask for plain tea. But then if you were sick, you got ginger tea. It wasn't just a beverage, it was a medicine, it was a comfort, it was a herb, it was all of those things. And it was around all the time. I don't think Sri Lankans really, or the world really understood the value of tea until Merrill Fernando got involved. And tea was a commodity, right? So what happened with tea was, all the countries that grew tea in the world, either the Dutch, the Portuguese, or the English, commoditized it. They would buy it in auction in bulk from all around the world, take it to Germany, mix it, and then sell it as Ceylon tea. Ceylon tea from day one has always had the name and synonymous with the best tea in the world. And still today, unfortunately, you could put 10% of Ceylon tea in with a mixture from China to Africa to wherever, to Asia, and still call it Ceylon tea. So Merrill Fernando decided that enough was enough. Yep, and this is 30 years, we're celebrating now, but I've known them for 33 years. When he came to Australia first to launch it, and he noticed my name on a menu and called me out, and we had a chat, and he told me that Dilmah tea is not blended with any other tea from anywhere else in the world. So it's single origin. All Dilmah tea comes from Sri Lanka, unless there's a few specialized Chinese teas and matcha. But we're making matcha tea here in Sri Lanka as well. It's just, the production has just started. Green tea used to come from only China. Now Sri Lanka has 2 factories producing green tea. So to answer the question, it is single origin, meaning only from one country, pure Ceylon tea, grown in incredible environment. Now the thing that people don't know much about tea is that depending on the elevation, the tea will change. So if you grow tea at sea level, it's strong. It's a good black tea. As you go up the mountains, the higher you get, the tea gets lighter. So then you have a lighter tea. And if you look over there, afterwards, you look down along there, you'll see all the different brews. And from one plant, Camellia sinensis, all of these different things happen. And then, once a year, they have a seasonal flush. This year there was 65 kilos, meaning that it only came from one plantation. And they found a group of trees, we were just tasting it when I was in Colombo. They found some bushes that were 180 years old, and they took the flush off those, and we tasted it 2 days ago. It was like drinking an ancient wine, and the romance and the history, a story, right? Anything with a story always tastes better. And so this tea was great.
And Chef, what inspires you to cook?
Cook what? Anything.
Anything besides
Passion. Cooking is about, look, I was pushed into being a commercial cook by my father, who realized that I loved cooking. With my grandmother in our ancestral home, our 360-year-old home in Colombo. And when I left school, I was kind of lost, and he said to me, go into a restaurant and ask for a job. And it was this change in my life. It changed my life totally, where I could use my hands, but I could use my head, and every day is different. Every ingredient is different. Every country has different ingredients. It doesn't stop. Every person in this room has a different taste, and to be able to bring them together and hopefully make them enjoy one dish and one meal is quite rewarding. Food brings happiness. Food brings people together. And a quick example, we filmed My Sri Lanka just after the war. So when we were in the north, I made Jaffna Kul, which is this beautiful dish, and the fishermen helped me, went out, caught the fish, came back, but the military had built a camp around where they had been sitting for years under this beautiful tree. The fishermen weren't deterred, they put their chairs around the camp. So it was like this kind of funny standoff. I've cooked the dish, I brought it over and given it to the fishermen, and a few soldiers walked over with their guns saying, what are you cooking? And I just said, go back, ask your CO if you can leave your guns behind and then I'll tell you. So they went back, they were relieved of their duties, they came back, they sat down, so there's a fisherman, Tamil fisherman, Sri Lankan soldier, Tamil fisherman, Sri Lankan soldier, us, and we started eating the food. And all I had to say was one thing to each of these men. Tell me what your grandmother used to cook. And that moment, they all became the same. Everyone became, and for 10 minutes, we chatted, we laughed, we had this amazing time. And then the soldiers had to pick up their guns, the fishermen had to go back. But food brings people together. That's what makes it good for me.
Most adventurous culinary journey.
Oh, I have them all the time.
All the time.
I think Mexico was pretty cool. We did a TV show in Mexico. On the third night we were there, it was Easter. And Easter is celebrated in a very different way in Mexico, especially by the Aboriginal people, the Indians, the original Red Indians. They celebrate it by the coming of the white devil. So when the Spanish invaded Mexico, they brought smallpox and all disease, and lots of people died. So during Easter, for the 5 days before, they drink this concoction of corn. I don't know what it is, but it's slightly alcoholic, and the whole village goes into this trance. And they play this drum, which is just, after a while, gets into your head. Like for days after we heard this drum, bong, 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 bong. But they also have a church, but it's a pagan church. It's this crazy thing. So what happens is half the village goes down, they crush up seashells, paint themselves white, put horns on, and then have makeshift guns and spears and attack the village. And for one day, every year, every problem that any villager has is allowed to be dealt with violence. So these guys just beat the hell out of each other. Women who've had arguments, you know, they can't do a thing. On that day, slap, slap. The men are punching each other, wrestling. It goes on for about an hour. There's blood and everything. And these guys, they're in a trance, right? And they have a few people watching in case it gets crazy. But it does, it goes crazy. And then it stops. Then they pile all because the Mexicans always win, pile all the weapons together and they throw stones at it. And that's it, goes back to peace and quiet for a full year. That's it. And I was in this one more thing, same place, so we're heading down from there, a place called Battuta, weird, ancient silver mining town. Everyone was sort of a little bit down in the face and very apprehensive. And we realised that it was a little hotspot for the gangsters. And these young kids with big guns coming into the town. The police station was a fort with a machine gun mounted on it. And then every now and again the paramilitaries came in, covered in masks, carrying heavy arms. So it was this weird thing. We're drinking tequila and, you know, like just the whole thing's going on. And one day this guy called me over, drunk. He called me over, he was absolutely drunk, and he just drew his sidearm and fired it right there, right by my ear, and then just put it back in and just drove off. That was it, didn't say a word, so that's pretty, and the next day we were in the hills cooking.
Two continents. And when it comes to food?
Yeah, good question. I was actually surprised. So starting in London, getting to Sri Lanka, the homely Sri Lankan, you know, down to earth, amazing cooking, passion for food, search for flavors, always looking for the best thing, cooking daily rather than filling your fridge, all of those things. Got to Australia, it was very hard for us in the beginning. I started my apprenticeship. I was lucky enough to work for some very good chefs, best chefs in Sydney at the time. And there was about six, in the 70s, there was about 6 young chefs who had been across to France, we'd read a lot, and were creating amazing food that we thought was, you know, pretty damn good. I finished my apprenticeship, travelled, backpacked a year through India, had my 21st birthday on the banks of the Ganges in Varanasi, got to London, and my first job was in a restaurant called Rue Saint-Jacques, which had 1 Michelin star. And I thought to myself, we're doing really well. Like Australia was doing really well. And they were, and that's when the realization came, hang on, I have a French base, my base is French. I guess I went through the Nouvelle Cuisine, came out the other side, went to London for 3 years, worked in Michelin star, you know, in the Roux Brothers restaurants, all that kind of stuff. Came back, and also at the age of 24, I thought, what the hell, nobody knows me here. I'm going to get a job as a head chef, just to see how I can go, because if I failed, we did well, we got you know, reviews and stuff. It was okay. Came back to Australia, got offered a job by Neil Perry, worked with Neil Perry, and started my cooking career. And one thing happened to me. So from a French base, this little Asian boy in me was always itching to come out and could never do it. And Neil Perry white ponytailed guy who'd never been overseas at that time was cooking Thai food. It was the first time that he'd made the transition of bringing Asian food into a modern Australian restaurant, and I just thought, hey, I can do this too. So my food now is modern Australian seafood with a twist of Sri Lankan, and I'm now pushing modern Sri Lankan food onto the masses, and they're loving it. So it keeps you interested. You always need a hook because it's so competitive in this world, but also I think you need to express yourself, and I feel now I can express myself, but I always have that French base.
What is food to
What
you?
is food to Peter Kuruvita? It's comfort, it's family, it's sharing, it's stories, it's tasty, creative, never-ending, ever-changing, and fun.
Any future plans within Dubai? Or maybe
I went in Dubai. I've been invited out for a jeep tour to the desert on Friday, so I'm going to do that. Because I've been to Dubai but never been out of a building, so I'm looking forward to that. I'd love to see the old cities. I'd love to go out and just disappear in the desert and find, because the stories that my parents told us of driving through the Middle East in 1968, 1969 were just stories of amazing friendship, sharing and compassion, and never like the most generous people. And I in Iran I found that I can't wait to get out to the desert. I mean, when we're in the cities, we have to become, you know, city people, but every city has its own soul and heart, and I'm noticing that here. But yeah, for me, it's always about discovering new things, and it never ends. I mean, the Middle East is just such an incredible place. Such an incredible place. Between leaving Colombo and getting here, I think I spoke to people from Muscat, Bahrain, Oman. People just coming up to me, oh, I've seen your show, and then I just said, well, I want to go to your country. So it just doesn't end. I mean, it doesn't end. And Sri Lanka, I still haven't seen it all. It's such a small, beautiful country. I haven't seen all of Australia. I could travel the rest of my life.
Thank you so much, Chef Peter. It was an honor talking to you.
Pleasure.